Hello everyone, I'm NurHikma and welcome to my video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to pronounce all the English consonant sounds and vowel sounds. In English, there are 24 consonant sounds and 12 monophthong vowel sounds, 8 diphthongs and 5 triphthongs. Let's get started. First, let's start with the consonant sounds. There are a few ways to tell consonant sounds apart, like the place of articulation or the manner of articulation. One way is to check if a sound is voiced or voiceless. Voiced and voiceless simply describe what your vocal folds do when you make a sound. If your vocal folds vibrate, the sound is voiced. And if they don't vibrate, the sound is voiceless. Now put your hand on your throat like this, right here, on your vocal folds. Then say a sound like z, z. If you feel vibration, the sound is voiced. Now say s, s. If you don't feel a vibration, the sound is voiceless. And beside voiced and voiceless, we can also tell consonant sound apart by the place of articulation and the manner of articulation. The place of articulation is where the sound is made in the mouth, and the manner of articulation is how the sound is made. Let's begin with the first sound. The first sound is p. This sound is voiceless because this sound do not have vibration when we say the sound p. And the place of articulation is bilabial. Bilabial is mean when the both lips come together. So it's like p. And the manner of articulation is plosive or stop. Plosive or stop is produced when the air flow is completely blocked and then suddenly released. For example, the word pen, pen. And the next sound is b, b. The place of articulation is bilabial too, and the manner of articulation is plosive too, but this sound is voiced. So the sound have a vibration when we say the sound b, b. For example, the word bag, bag. The next sound is m, m. The place of articulation is bilabial too, but the manner of articulation is nasal. Nasal means when nasal is produced when the airflow is to the nose, not the mouth, and this sound is voiced. For example, the word man, man. The next sound is the place of articulation is labiodental. Labiodental is produced when the lower lip touches the upper teeth, and the manner of articulation is fricative. Fricative is when the airflow to the narrow passage and create friction, and this sound is voiceless. So it's like, for example, the word fish, fish. The next sound is v, v. The place of articulation is labiodental too, and the manner of articulation is fricative too, but this sound is voiced. So there is a vibration when we say the sound. For example, the word van, van. The next sound is the place of articulation is interdental. Interdental is produced when the tongue is placed between teeth. So it's like, and the manner of articulation is fricative. Fricative because the airflow is through the nasal passage and create friction. And this sound is voiceless. For example, the word think, think. The next sound is z, z. The place of articulation is interdental too, and the manner of articulation is fricative too, but this sound is voiced. So there is a vibration when we say the sound. For example, the word this, this. The next sound is t, t. The place of articulation is alveolar. Alveolar is produced when the tongue touches or approaches the alveolar ridge. So alveolar ridge is in behind the upper teeth. And the manner of articulation is plosive. Plosive is like p. So the airflow is completely blocked and then suddenly released. For example, is the word top, top. The next sound is t, t, t. The place of articulation is alveolar too, so it touches or approaches the alveolar ridge. And the manner of articulation is plosive too, but this sound is voiced. So there is a vibration when we say the sound. For example, the word dark, dark. The next sound is s, s. The place of articulation is alveolar too, so the tongue is approaches or touches the alveolar ridge. And the manner of articulation is fricative. Fricative is because the airflow is through the nasal passage and create friction. And this sound is voiceless. For example, the word sun, sun. The next sound is z, z. The place of articulation is alveolar too, and the manner of articulation is fricative too, but this sound is voiced. For example, the word zoo, zoo. The next sound is The place of articulation is alveolar too, so the tongue is touches or approaches the alveolar ridge, and the manner of articulation is nasal. So the airflow is through the nose instead of the mouth, and the sound is voiced. And for example, the word nose, nose. The next sound is la, la or l, l. The place of articulation is alveolar too, but the manner of articulation is lateral approximant. So lateral approximant is when the airflow through the sides of the tongue, and this sound is voiced. For example, the word light, light. The next sound is or ra, ra. The place of articulation is alveolar too, so the tongue touches or approaches the alveolar ridge, and the manner of articulation is approximate. Unlike the lateral approximant before, an approximant is a sound where the articulator is come close to each other but don't create friction, and this sound is voiced. For example, the word red, red. The next sound is sh, sh. The place of articulation is post-alveolar. Post-alveolar is unlike the alveolar before because post-alveolar is produced when the tongue touches or approaches behind the alveolar ridge, near the hard palate of our mouth. And the manner of articulation is fricative. Fricative is a airflow to the narrow passage and create friction, and this sound is voiceless. For example, the word sheep, sheep. The next sound is z, z. The place of articulation is post-alveolar too, and the manner of articulation is fricative too, but this sound is voice. And for example, the word measure, measure. The next sound is ch, ch. The place of articulation is post-alveolar too, but the manner of articulation is affricate. Unlike the fricative, affricate is sounds where a stop or a plosive is released into the friction. So it starts like a plosive but ends like fricative. And this sound is voiceless. For example, the word chair, chair. The next sound is ch, ch. The place of articulation is post-alveolar too, and the manner of articulation is affricate too, but this sound is voice, ch, ch. For example, the word jump, jump. The next sound is ya, ya. The place of articulation is palatal. Palatal is produced when the front of the tongue approaches the head palate of our mouth. So it's like ya, ya. And the manner of articulation is approximant. Approximant is when the articulator come close to each other but they'll not create a friction, and this sound is voiced. For example, the word yes, yes. The next sound is k, k. The place of articulation is velar. Velar produced when the back of the tongue touches or approaches the soft palate on our mouth. And the manner of articulation is plosive. Plosive is when the airflow completely blocked and then released. And this sound is voiceless. K. And for example, the word cat, cat. The next sound is g, g. The place of articulation is velar too, and the manner of articulation is plosive too, but this sound is voiced. So there is a vibration in our vocal folds. For example, the word go, Go. The next sound is The place of articulation is velar too, but the manner of articulation is nasal. Nasal is when the air flows to the nose, not the mouth. And this sound is voiced. For example, the word sing. Sing. The next sound is wa. Wa. The place of articulation is velar too, but the manner of articulation is approximate, because the articulator come close without make friction, and this sound is voiced. For example, the word wet. Wet. And the last sound is the place of articulation is glottal. Glottal is produced in the glottis in the throat, and the manner of articulation is fricative. So the airflow is through a narrow passage and create friction. The sound is voiceless. And for example, the word hat. Hat. So those are all 24 consonant sounds in English based on the place of articulation and the manner of articulation and the voicing. Now that we've learned about consonant sounds, now let's move on to vowel sounds. For vowel sounds, I will explain 3 things: tongue height, tongue position, and lip shape. Tongue height means how high or low the tongue is raised inside the mouth, high, mid, or low. Tongue position means which part of the tongue is doing the work, the front, the central, or the back. And the lip shape means whether the lips are rounded or unrounded. So let's start with the 12 monophthong, which bar a pure or single vowel sounds. The first sound is E. E. The tongue is high and the front part of the tongue is raised, and the lips are unrounded. E. For example, the word see. See. The next sound is I. I. The tongue is mid-height and the front part of the tongue is raised, so it's slightly lower than E before, and the lips are unrounded. For example, the word sit. Sit. The next sound is A. A. The tongue is mid-low and the front part of the tongue is raised, and the lips are unrounded. A. For example, the word bed. Bed. The next sound is A. A. The tongue is low and the front part of the tongue is raised. A. And the lips are unrounded. A. For example, the word cat. Cat. The next sound is The tongue is mid-height and the central part of the tongue is raised, and the lips are unrounded. For example, the word bird. Bird. The next sound is The tongue is mid-low and the central part is raised, and the lips are unrounded. For example, the word about. About. The next sound is The tongue is low and the central part is raised. The lips are unrounded. Ah. For example, the word cup. Cup. The next sound is oo. Ooh. The tongue is high and the back part is raised, and the lips are rounded. For example, the word food. Food. The next sound is oo. Ooh. The tongue is mid-high, so it's slightly lower than sound oo, and the back part is raised, and the lips are rounded. Ooh. For example, the word book. Book. The next sound is oh. Oh. The tongue is mid-low and the back part is raised, and the lips are rounded. For example, the word low. Low. The next sound is oh. Oh. The tongue is low and the back part is raised, and the lips are rounded. For example, the word hurt. Hurt. The next sound is ah. Ah. The tongue is low and the back part is raised, but lips are unrounded. For example, the word father. Father. So there are all sound 12 monophthong in vowel. The next is diphthong. A diphthong is a sound that starts with one vowel sound and glides smoothly into another vowel sound. The first sound is A. A. This glides from A to E. For example, the word day. Day. The next sound is I. I. This glides from A to E. For example, the word my. My. The next sound is oi. Oi. This glides from O to E. For example, the word boy. Boy. The next sound is O. O. This glides from to U. For example, the word go. Go. The next sound is O. O. This glides from A to U. For example, the word now. Now. The next sound is ear. Ear. This glides from E to E. For example, the word near. Near. The next sound is This glides from A to E. For example, the word hair. Hair. The next sound is ur. Ur. This glides from U to E. For example, the word tour. Tour. So there are all 8 diphthongs. The next is diphthong. A diphthong glides from one vowel sound to a second and then to a third. The first sound is air. Air. This glides from the diphthong A to E. For example, the word player. Player. The next sound is air. Air. This glides from I to E. For example, the word fire. Fire. The next sound is oil. Oil. This glides from oil to E. For example, the word royal. Royal. The next sound is over. Over. This glides from O to E. For example, the word lower. Lower. The next sound is hour. Hour. This glass from ow to e. For example, the word hour, hour. So that's how to pronounce all the English consonant sounds and vowel sounds. Based on the place of articulation, manner of articulation, voicing, tongue position, height, lips, and lip shape. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.